Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International. Service to the student, the school, the profession, and the community. The origin of Phi Alpha Delta is unique in that it is the only law fraternity whose roots were nurtured in a legal controversy. On November 4, 1897, the Supreme Court of Illinois adopted a rule adversely affecting many students preparing for admission to the bar. To protect their rights, a group of students organized the Law Student League. Because of the strong bond that the league formed with one another, they searched for a way to preserve their relationship. In 1898, the league developed the Lambda Epsilon fraternity, Lambda standing for law, and Epsilon for equity. Members of Lambda Epsilon realized the need for a more inclusive organization. On July 26, 1902, at the Colonial Tavern in South Haven, Michigan, delegates to the convention unanimously adopted a resolution dissolving Lambda Epsilon. The next day, the Articles of South Haven were drafted, giving birth to what was to become Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity. After months of work, on November 8, 1902, the Articles, Constitution, Ritual, and Rules were formally adopted with the name Phi Alpha Delta. The Greek phrase, Philos adelphos Dikaios, translates to love of humanity and justice for all.
Phi Alpha Delta's first chapter was the William Blackstone chapter at the Chicago-Kent College of Law, which was chartered on November 12, 1902. Other chapters soon followed. By 1911, Phi Alpha Delta had reached the West Coast with the installation of Holmes, Ross, and Temple chapters. That same year saw the chartering of the first alumni chapters in Chicago, New York, Portland, and Washington, D.C.
Just prior to World War I, the fraternity had 37 active chapters and 15 alumni chapters. However, membership was decimated by the war, and almost all chapters went inactive. In the fall of 1921, President Warren G. Harding was initiated into Phi Alpha Delta. President and now Brother Harding's oath of membership took place at the White House. Just as the fraternity was recovering from World War I, the Great Depression struck, which resulted in cancellation of the 1933 convention. In order to survive, the Supreme Board directed each national officer to personally visit the remaining active chapters. When World War II began, Phi Alpha Delta was further plunged into turmoil. Many law schools were closed and chapters stopped their operations. In fact, the 1940 convention was postponed indefinitely, with the supreme officers who were elected in 1938 to serve until 1946.
After World War II, Phi Alpha Delta was reduced to 6 active chapters. The fraternity embarked on a reactivation effort. The effort had immediate success, with 50 chapters attending the first post-war convention in 1946. In 1948, the executive office moved from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles. Frank E. Gray, executive secretary, Matthew Sandy Ray, national field representative, and California Supreme Court Justice Douglas L. Edmonds led the fraternity through a period of rapid growth and change. In 1950, at the convention in French Lick Springs, Indiana, the race restriction was eliminated, a law fraternity first.
The fraternity continued to prosper in the 50s and 60s. During this period began an emphasis on professionalism, with such events as P.A.D. Day at the Supreme Court, a memorable event which began in 1966 and continues to this day. There were other memorable highlights in the 60s. On April 4th, 1966, the entire membership of the Supreme Courts of Massachusetts, Maine, and New Hampshire were initiated simultaneously by Phi Alpha Delta Supreme Vice Justice Tom C. Clark, then a sitting member of the United States Supreme Court.
One of the most impressive things to me was the fact that Tom C. Clark, an Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court, served on the International Executive Board of the fraternity, and I was very much impressed because he devoted a great deal of time to the fraternity, yet while serving in a very high position.
In 1969, the first chartering of a chapter outside the continental United States occurred when the Sir John Macdonald chapter was installed at Windsor University Law School in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Soon thereafter, De Diego chapter was chartered at Catholic University in Ponce, Puerto Rico. The subsequent convention inserted the word international into the official name of the fraternity.
At the New Orleans Convention in 1970, the male-only restriction for membership was removed. Phi Alpha Delta was the first law fraternity to so act. In 1972, at the convention in San Diego, Phi Alpha Delta was a part of another law fraternity first, a merger with Phi Delta Delta, one of the world's oldest and largest law fraternities for women. In 1979, Phi Alpha Delta chartered its first law school chapter in Mexico at the Universidad Regiomontana in Monterrey, Mexico.
In 1980, at the 43rd Biennial Convention, the Phi Alpha Delta pre-law program was established. On April 24, 1981, the first pre-law chapter was chartered at Southwest Missouri State College. The pre-law program exploded in popularity throughout the country. As of 2002, there are over 210 pre-law chapters. Phi Alpha Delta is the only law fraternity to provide such a program. Pre-law members benefit from the Phi Alpha Delta Pre-Law Conference and Law Expo, a senior transition program into law school, and the opportunity to network with brothers and sisters at the law school and alumni level. On September 14, 1987, Phi Alpha Delta awarded its highest honor, the Tom C. Clark Award, to Brother Jimmy Carter at the Carter Presidential Center in Atlanta, Georgia.
Well, this is a very great honor for me for many reasons. First of all, the Phi Alpha Delta membership, more than 100,000 strong, just because of your own commitment to a common goal, demonstrate your personal belief in equal justice under the law.
This was the first time in the Phi Alpha Delta history that a President of the United States was a recipient.
In 1990, Phi Alpha Delta continued in its growth. However, in 1992, then Executive Director Frederick J. Whitecamp announced his retirement after 40 years of leadership. It is a tribute to Brother Whitecamp that the 1992 convention was by far the best attended in the history of the fraternity. The presidential election of William Jefferson Clinton brought another first for the fraternity and the nation, as both the President and First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton were members of Phi Alpha Delta.
In May of 1999, the executive office moved from its home of 50 years in Los Angeles to Baltimore, Maryland. In the year 2000, to fund the purchase and continuing maintenance of the headquarters, Phi Alpha Delta launched the Building Opportunities Capital Campaign.
Later that same year, the convention assembled in Miami Beach, Florida, and elected the first female international justice, Shelley A. Weinstein, another fraternity first.
At the same convention, last past Supreme Justice and Phi Alpha Delta historian C. Raymond Giudice made a surprise presentation of the updated edition of our fraternity's history. Brother Giudice has chronicled a century of Phi Alpha Delta firsts.
In 2002, the fraternity began its year-long centennial celebration in Washington, D.C. 100 years of service to the student, the school, the profession, and the community.
In the age of technology, and with a strong history behind the fraternity, Phi Alpha Delta continued to grow and establish a structure for a promising future. The online store was opened in 2003, the first long-term strategic plan was implemented, and the nationwide mock trial competition for law school chapters was established. It became one of the largest in the country. In 2010, the Alumni Operations Department was created to promote alumni chapter operations and to facilitate relations between alumni and student members. The first electronic voting system was introduced at convention in 2012. Shortly after, the first online pre-law chapter was chartered at American Public University. In 2013, the Executive Office Building in Baltimore, Maryland was sold and headquarters relocated to Towson, Maryland, a Baltimore suburb. Phi Alpha Delta is one of the fraternal leaders in the use of social media outlets, including its own robust community-based website launched in 2014.
Phi Alpha Delta is the largest law fraternity in the world. Presidents, governors, senators, congressmen, judges, lawyers, law and pre-law students from around the globe are members and bonded together by a century of fraternalism.
Phi Alpha Delta Law Fraternity International, your law fraternity.